Sometimes that is better.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the KillJoy Jake podcast. I'm joined here today with Matt. How you doing, man?
Pretty good. How you guys doing? Ready to talk some Scream today, the whole franchise.
Oh, yeah. Going to talk about the whole damn thing, Matt. Oh,
let's do it.
So let's start off with the original classic, Scream 1996, a game changer in the slasher genre. Matt, how do you feel about this bad boy?
I absolutely love this movie. It started... Well, let me not say it started, but I think what it did is it reinvented movies in the 90s. Because in the 90s, horror was becoming a genre that just wasn't going to be a thing anymore. So Scream basically reinvented the slasher genre, brought it back for us, and it was great. I loved that movie. I loved the opening scene. That opening scene is iconic to me. That whole movie in general was great. The characters were great. The dialogue was great. I loved it.
Oh, yeah. And something you just said, which I thought was really interesting, is Scream essentially saved the horror genre in a lot of ways. You know, I feel like the slasher subgenre is a bit of like the beating heart of just horror in general in a lot of ways. So to see that kind of go downhill in the early 90s was really unfortunate and kind of scary for horror fans. But then bam, Scream comes out, reinvents the whole thing. And now we still have movies to this day that are super influenced by this film.
Exactly. I couldn't agree more.
Oh yeah. What's some of the characters in this movie too, I feel like are so iconic. Is this your favorite cast of characters in a Scream film?
You know what? I would say yes, and I don't know if it's because of how iconic it is, but I think I just really enjoyed out of all the movies, like all of them have, their meta dialogue and references, but I thought this movie just did it over the top, but in a good way, to the best it could do. And I thought it was amazing. Like the whole Wes Carpenter thing. They're talking about Tom Cruise, Jamie Lee Curtis. They're watching Halloween. They're so meta with it, and it's so good. The characters are so good. They created the rules for horror. Randy was great. I just loved it all around.
It's so relatable in a way that really hadn't been touched on too much before. These are characters who also watch horror movies. They're not typical horror movie characters, which I love.
Exactly.
Oh yeah, and I also love like Tatum as a character who is kind of like your delivery mechanism for a lot of these like commentary angles, like what you just said with like Wes Carpenter. She gets the name wrong, she mixes it up with John Carpenter and Wes Craven, and I feel like that's just great commentary to say like, yes, we know who these people are, but sometimes something gets messed up in translation or whatever. I guess is kind of the point of that scene. Even though yes, we're familiar with these huge icons of horror.
Exactly.
But I just love it, man. I think it probably has the best cast of characters in my opinion. It's great, and we also have an amazing twist ending here with Billy and Stu both being our killers. How do you feel about this like fake out ending we have at the end here with two people instead of one?
I thought that was great. Because she realized, oh hey, Billy's not dead. Right after he shot Randy, and then she's like, oh Stu, help me, and then it's like, nope, surprise, Sydney. There's two of us. So I thought that was great. I expected one killer going into that movie. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, because I think the whole time you're watching it, the first time you're looking for one person. They never talk about two people. It's never anything even mentioned. And Billy Loomis is pretty suspicious the entire time.
For sure. And they make him such a good like red herring. So the whole time you're like, it can't be this guy. They're pushing it too hard. And then at the end of the movie, it's him. And then the thing is, too, is I didn't expect two killers because the first Scream movie I've ever seen was Scream 3, and we had one killer. So Scream 3 kind of set it up for me thinking there's just going to be one killer.
Oh, no way, dude. Oh, so this one probably especially hit for you, huh?
Exactly. So, like, my initiation into this whole franchise was Scream 3. Saw it at a birthday party, thought it was good, and I'm like, okay, this is Scream 3. Let me see what else is going on here. Checked out Scream 1, watched them all back to back. Scream 4 was the first one I saw in the theaters, and then 5 and 6 after that.
Nice, man. Oh my God. Oh, that's awesome. Yep. That's a really interesting start to this franchise, to start off with 3, because I feel like that one tone-wise is just very different from all of the other movies. So that's really interesting. I don't know. It's just fascinating.
It is. I agree with that. And I don't know if it was like the Hollywood setting, like the big city life setting, but I agree with that. And everyone has that opinion, and it's like spot on.
Oh yeah, and it's a little larger than life for that reason, because of the setting, because of the characters we're dealing with. We're following actors now instead of teenagers from small town USA,
Exactly.
and it gives it that upbeat feel. It's like everything that happens is a little more extravagant than the previous two movies. I love it. It's a great entry, and it's super underrated in my
Yeah,
opinion.
for sure, for sure.
Oh yeah, but just another thing I want to bring up about just the original Scream. You said you love the opening scene, man. Tell me about
Oh, I
like
do.
what's your favorite element to this opening with Drew Barrymore?
I don't know. Just like I guess to me, it's the suspense. To me, it's anybody can be in this situation. Like we're all in the house by ourselves. You know I speak for myself when I say this and a lot of other people, but I'm always making popcorn, getting ready to sit down and watch a horror movie. Phone can ring at any time. This can happen to anybody. So that put me in such like a real spot. And then the fact that she was basically in the middle of nowhere, so close to her parents, just adds that suspense to it, that momentum. And I just have not seen an opening beat that. And not just the Scream franchise, any franchise. I absolutely love it.
It's great. I think objectively this is the best opening scene in the whole franchise.
Uh-huh.
Just for what it did in terms of like subverting expectations. Like you think, oh, Drew Barrymore, this huge star at the time, of course she's going to be the lead role. No, we're just going to kill her
Exactly.
in the first 11 minutes. What? Oh,
Yep.
that's awesome, man.
Yep.
I not only that, but I totally agree with the comment on like relatability here. Like this is like something that I feel like could happen to truly any horror fan or anybody really out there. And for that reason, it's so much scarier than you could ever imagine when you really think about it. Like it might not be the scariest scene in horror history or anything like that, but
Right.
it's so real, and that's what I think the horror from Scream comes from.
Right. You're not like trapped on some island somewhere in some big building. It's like you're in your own home where you feel safe.
Right, exactly. And
Yeah.
that's terrifying. It's like, oh my God, someone can just come in here at any time with a knife and just start stabbing me. At least he gives me, a warning with the phone call, but still.
Exactly. Right. Right. I agree.
It's great stuff, man. It's an iconic movie with amazing characters. Sidney Prescott too is often considered the best final girl of all time. Would you agree with that statement?
I agree with that 100%. I like Sydney. I'll put it this way. I like the Halloween franchise a little bit more, but I think Sydney Prescott is a better final girl, 100%.
I'm with you there. I love Laurie Strode. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I just feel like Sydney's story overall, I just feel like they've gotten that way better than Laurie Strode. I'm still not quite satisfied with an entire Laurie Strode arc personally, but Sydney Prescott, I feel like it's perfect. Like I don't even think there was a single misstep. Even I know some people criticize like Scream 4 for being like this is kind of unnecessary, but it still shows you a whole different side to Sydney that I really appreciate and I think is really fun.
Right. Exactly.
Oh yeah. But yeah, these characters are great. This movie's fantastic. Probably the best in the franchise.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
But then we have Scream 2, which is a little more divisive. How do you feel about this one?
Scream 2. I liked Scream 2. It wasn't my favorite. I did think it was realistic because the trauma that Sydney went through along with Randy, okay? Realistically, they're not going to want to stay in California. They go to Ohio. They go to college. That would be the next step. New killer wants to come after her. It makes sense. I don't picture them staying in Woodsboro, even though I know the movies go back to Woodsboro. But I think overall, the movie had a great setting. And I just think they did really well with it, honestly. I think it had a great set of side characters to set up to just kill. Sarah Michelle Gellar was great in that movie. I loved her death scene. And I think it honestly set up a good, I don't know, a plot. I think it was really good.
It's really got a good story, I
Yeah.
think, for sure. That's one of the strongest aspects to Scream 2, for sure. Some of the new characters, too, I really enjoy. Like, you brought up Sarah Michelle Gellar. I love her roommate, too. Mickey, I think, is just such a great, like one of the best killers, maybe one of the most underrated killers in the whole franchise, in my opinion.
Yeah, I like Mickey, too. Mrs. Loomis, I'm kind of, like, with you on that. I don't know. She was a little silly, in my opinion, just with her actions and mannerisms,
How do you feel about the concept of like just the mother of the previous killer essentially being the sequel killer?
I mean, it was a shock to me. I didn't expect it. So shock factor, absolutely. Just seeing like her mannerism, she just like, I don't know, she almost seemed a little too crazy, a little over the top. Just like in Scream 6, just how Officer Bailey was well, he was more over the top in my opinion, but they were both over the top characters to me.
Yeah, and like it kind of goes against the whole like realism thing we were just talking about a moment ago. Like I feel like
Exactly.
the horror from this franchise comes from that element to it, and when you
Uh-huh.
just kind of blow past that, it ruins that whole element. I get they wanted a campy, fun performance, but it just doesn't work for me for that reason. Maybe if
Right.
Scream was like, you know, very similar to a Pieces or like an old school slasher or something where these campy things can happen and they feel so natural, that would totally work. But a lot of Scream to me, I feel like comes from the fact that it's humor in dialogue and serious when it gets down to the kills, and that's what
Right.
makes it scary. It feels real for that reason.
Right. Exactly.
And this is the one time in, at least in the like original trilogy, well, maybe not the only time in the original trilogy,
Yeah.
but especially in 2 where it breaks that. Where the whole movie I feel like is pretty consistent with the first film until that third act.
Right. Right. And I agree with that too. I
Now,
almost think the movie was like, I almost feel like in a way they could have taken like maybe 15 minutes out of that movie and just made it a little bit shorter. It felt so long to me too.
it's a little long. I agree. I think the
Yeah.
pacing, like, especially in the back half, I feel like it slows down a little bit.
Mhm.
But how do you feel about the opening scene? Just to go from point A to point B real quick.
So the opening scene to Scream 2, I'm not gonna lie, like I think honestly, compared to Scream 1, that comes in second because I feel like that is also a scary situation. You know, you're in a big theater with so many people that can help you, but they all think it's a publicity stunt. So that's even scarier. You're getting murdered in front of everyone thinking it's fake and part of some like horror scheme, you know, to promote Stab. And that wasn't the case. So I think that's just equally as scary. So that opening scene would come into number two for me. But the thing I did not like was the whole bathroom scene. Like I'm like I pay attention to like things that are realistic and aren't realistic. He would not have known where his head was on that bathroom stall. I'm sorry, but you know what? It's a movie at the end of the day, so I guess it happens.
Yeah, I feel you there. Like
Yeah,
I almost think like maybe if you would have gotten like one miss, you know, and then like the guy like,
exactly.
you know, reels back or something and then another one that hits, I would have been okay with it. I just like this the is it the sequencing, is it the pace or whatever? I don't know. There's
Right.
just something that feels kind of whack about it. It immediately is a little goofier than the original film,
Uh
but
huh.
man, that opening scene is just so well done. I love it. Just like the original too, it makes you think, you know, it's like, well, oh my god, it's actually horrifying if you think about it from Marine's perspective in this situation.
Exactly. Exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Oh,
she was scared already even before she knew Ghostface was in there. She didn't want to see that. She wanted to see Sandra Bullock. So yeah.
right, exactly, man. She
Yep.
she makes that very clear.
Yeah, she does.
I really do love that opening scene. It's so much fun. It's so over the top.
Yeah.
As is the rest of this movie too. What's your favorite kill besides the opening?
So I'm gonna have to say Sarah Michelle Gellar's kill. Okay. Um, Throughout that sequence, it was creepy. Big house. No one's there. Okay. I think she made some pretty dumb decisions. As soon as her friend left, the she picked up the phone and said, "This isn't Ted." So she should have ran out there with her friend, but no. She shut the door, tried to set the alarm. Ghostface comes out, chases her up the stairs. But overall, I think the way that that sequence happened, even though I think she made some dumb decisions, it was a pretty good kill. Like he stabs her in the back and then throws her off a balcony. I think that's awesome.
Oh, it's brutal, man. It's maybe
Yep.
my favorite. That's also my favorite, I think, in two as well. But it's not just because of the kill being brutal. It's like the
Right.
setup to it, man. Like the chase up the stairs and all that, and then when they get upstairs, you know, the stab and the toss. It's the full thing that really makes it so tense and freaky that I fucking
Exactly.
love.
And
It
then
makes
that's oh no, go ahead. I'm sorry.
it makes no sense that there's a bicycle on the third floor, but besides that, I love it.
I agree. I agree because if there's yeah, that didn't make sense to me either. But hey, but no, I was gonna say like in Scream 2, we have so many good chase sequences too. The whole chase sequence with Dale Weathers, like that was that came close to her chase sequence in part 6, in my opinion. It was good. They had some great chase sequences.
Okay, do you like the part 6 chase more? Just out of curiosity.
Um, you know what? To be honest with you, I like the chase in part 2 better, but the thing I like about 6 better is that she finally had her phone call with Ghostface.
That is really cool, man. It's really nice setup. It's that chase scene in 6 is one of my favorites from the franchise, but I think Scream 2 is king when it comes to like chases and then execution of kills personally. But the one thing about 2 that I criticize is that most of the kills in the film I feel like are a little underwhelming. Like the roommate, for instance, when they're in the car and they like climb over Ghostface and then somehow he gets to the other side of the street and just kind of stabs her. You know, it's not really like Randy talks about in this film, like, you know, the sequel always has like a bigger body count, and sure, Scream 2 does deliver on that, but I feel like a lot of the kills are not as gruesome as the original film. But that's just, I don't know, that's just my opinion. How do you feel about like just the overall kills from this one?
Oh, I agree. Haley's death, I think it was very underwhelming. Derek's death at the end, I feel like that was underwhelming. Who else? Let me think. I don't know. I would say those two are definitely underwhelming. I'll say that. Randy's death, I didn't think was underwhelming. I think that was pretty brutal, and I didn't expect that. I thought he was going to make that through that whole movie, but he did not. So, yeah, I see what you're saying. Some of the deaths underwhelming, some not.
Randy's is so emotional, man. Like that is so. Oh, it's the first time we really lose like a big legacy character like that. Right. What were your thoughts on that?
The thing was I didn't expect it because, he wasn't scared. Like he had his momentum going. Like he was feeling like, oh, I got this. He's like, there's not going to be some killer out here in broad daylight. That van door opens, pulls him right in. Like, damn.
It's brutal.
His confidence was up when he got killed.
Yes, that's something that's so interesting about Randy's character arc. Like he starts off as kind of like this more shy, a little like in your face teenager, trying to stand out so that people pay attention to him. And then in 2, he's gained a little bit of confidence in college, which is cool.
Oh yeah, no, he learned from the first one for sure, 100%.
But unfortunately, it does lead to his downfall ultimately, which is really sad, and it's the loss of kind of a fan favorite character like that. But it's so shocking, Scream does that so well. It's a bit of a trope at this point, like especially with what happens in 5. But it's shocking nonetheless, man. It's very fun. Any other closing thoughts on Scream 2 before we move on to 3?
No, I don't think so. I think we're good.
Hell yeah, Scream 2, man. There we go. Yeah. Scream 3, this is the one that most oftentimes gets cited as maybe the worst, but I feel like is underrated. Matt, how do you feel about this one?
Scream 3, I didn't hate it, but it also was not my favorite. The opening kill with Cotton I thought was underwhelming. I didn't like the fact that Sydney felt like she wasn't in like half of this movie. I didn't like the vibe between Dewey and Gale, the agitation. I don't know why, because like we saw that in Scream 2, they resolved it, and it's like they're at each other's throats again in 3. So I'm like, there are just certain vibes of that movie I did not like, and I did not like how they go back to when Maureen Prescott was in her early 20s acting. I don't know really why they went there. I guess they went there just to kind of go back to the whole Roman thing and how she gave him up and things like that. So I guess that makes sense. But overall, I agree with a lot of other people. Scream 3 is probably my least favorite of the franchise.
A lot of it is shoehorning too, like with the Roman plot line and the mom like secretly being this actress the whole time. And also Roman was like kind of involved with the events of Scream 1. I don't like, to me, it's just a bit too much of a stretch. It's too much of like, this was all happening in the background. Like that's insane. You can only stretch something so far, in my opinion. And Scream 3 kind of just blows past that without care.
Exactly.
Yeah, I really do enjoy, like, I really do like the third act, and like Roman's reveal is a little shocking. It's fun, but like his motive is maybe my least favorite in the entire franchise personally.
Yeah, and I agree, and I also made it to me with him giving his monologue and stuff at the end of the movie and explaining like why he did what he did. It almost makes me feel like we're starting to kind of ruin the events of the original.
Now, Scream 3 also has a lot of very over-the-top sequences. Like, an entire house blows up because it fills up with gas. We have a character getting chased around a, like, prop department where they have a little fight with Ghostface. How do you feel about this much more over-the-top, like, very Hollywood-esque feel that this movie has?
I didn't like the whole house blow-up scene either. I don't know if they just wanted to do something dramatic, but it was unrealistic because the second he lit that lighter, the house would have blown up. He wouldn't have time to read the whole thing. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and I think at that point, like, I don't know. I don't know. Very unrealistic. Very unrealistic. And
And
I didn't like. Oh no, go ahead. Sorry.
like you're telling me you're telling me Jennifer Jolie doesn't have a single flashlight in her house.
Exactly. Exactly. And I know, you know, at the time, cell phones didn't have the flashlights on them, so I get what you're saying.
Right. Like that. Okay. You know, that it all makes sense, but it's like, man, all they have is a lighter. That's crazy. But
Yep.
I guess she was smoking cigarettes earlier. So like, I
That's
get it.
true. Yeah.
I wish they would have focused on that element just a little more in the earlier half, that she smoked cigarettes. But like, if they were going to do that, they should have made it her that got blown up in her own house. You know what I mean? There's a
You're
thematic
right.
element to there
You're
that I
right.
feel like they missed out on.
Exactly. I mean, they killed her off anyway, so, you know.
Right. Why not do it? Why not do it there? I love Parker
Exactly.
Posey though in this role. She's a huge standout for me personally, but I just feel like that would have made more sense considering like it's her house. It's she's the one who's been talked about like having a problem smoking cigarettes the whole time. I just think that would have made that would have made more sense. Every time I watch it, I think about that.
I agree. I agree.
Do you have any other standout characters from this one or cameo appearances, as there are aplenty?
I did like Mark Kincaid. I think he was a good character because he played such a good red herring, especially at the end of the movie, and when he says to Sydney, when they're talking about, oh, what's your favorite scary movie, and he says My Life. I don't know, that gives me vibes that, oh, this guy could be the killer, you know. So they kind of did, I feel, with him what they did with Billy in Scream. So, but he didn't end up being the killer, and I was kind of shocked by that. So they did a good job setting that up. They did a good job, you know, leading us to not knowing who the killer was. I think Scream 3 did well with that.
I do too. You know, I will say I actively criticize this film a lot, but if they did nothing else like really well, the red herrings in this movie are phenomenal. Like Angelina Tyler, I was very suspicious of, and if you've never seen the assembly cut of the film, there is so much more that adds to like the suspicion around her. They basically made her the Billy of this film in terms of like she was so obviously the killer, but then she's not. So I guess that's not exactly Billy, but point being, she's very obviously like in the wrong places at the wrong time. They expand on that even more than Scream 3 already does, and it's done so well. Same thing with Mark Kincaid, man. The guy's suspicious. Like that first scene with him, even with Gail, it's just like, what's up with that? You know, I don't know. This guy, the way he talks and the way like some of his mannerisms, is he just dark and brooding, or does he have some kind of secret that he's hiding? I love it. It's done really well.
Right. And I will say this. I did see the assembly cut of the opening with Cotton, and I do like that version much better.
It builds the tension so much more, like not seeing Christine. Like you think, oh, that could be her on the other side of the phone, but then it's like, nope, voice changer, bam, what?
Right.
Oh,
Exactly.
it's a bigger reveal. It's almost like you're getting a Ghostface reveal in the opening scene, like because of the way that they do it.
And they didn't even go with like the Ghostface, you know, and just, well, you didn't even hear the Ghostface Roger Jackson's voice until he was about to kill Cotton at the very end.
Yes, it's done way better in my opinion. That brings me to another part of Scream 3, though, that's very controversial. How do you feel about the voice changer?
I mean, at the time, it didn't bother me, but, you know, as the years went on, I've just been hearing from so many people how unrealistic that is and how we don't have that technology today. So I think about it, and I'm like, okay, I guess that makes sense. Let's say you could get people's voices. It's not going to be clear as day, and it was. I mean, I guess it's a good concept to think about, but I guess I wish they would have went down like a more realistic route, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I also think that like some of the voices they end up to me, it just doesn't feel like it affects the plot enough to where I actually like care about it. And I feel like almost we got robbed of some like just more killer Roger L. Jackson performances because of it. It's an interesting idea. I agree with you. I wish like not only is it like not realistic, but I wish they would have used it more. There's a deleted scene in that assembly cut where we get this call from like you think it's Sydney, but it's really Ghostface inviting Dewey and Gale over to Roman's house. Like that's how they end up getting there in the assembly cut. And I'm like, okay, that's better in my opinion, because at least you see like Roman actively utilizing this more than just like the opening scene and the Jenny McCarthy sequence.
Right, exactly.
So I don't know. I wish it affected the plot just a little more. Like the only time it's really utilized is to like when Ghostface is fucking around with his victims. But I wish he could like ruin someone's reputation with that kind of technology.
Oh yeah, he could have.
And that's never really it's never really utilized in the film. Like he used it, like it's Roman on the phone actually. Now that I'm thinking about it, calling Sarah Darling. I couldn't remember her name.
Yeah. Yep.
So like I don't know. To me, I wish that maybe like Dewey and Gale, they had like you were talking about, they had that bit of discourse between these two characters. What if there was a call like that Dewey got, and it was like he thought it was Gale saying all this nasty shit to him, and he's like, oh my god, Gale, I'm done with you. Like I'm not talking to you anymore. And like that could totally fuck up their relationship in a weird way. I don't know. I just feel like they could have used that in a better way. Sorry.
Right, and that would have been a great idea. They didn't decide to utilize ruining reputations until part 6. So yeah.
It's just, I don't know. It's just something to think about. Yeah, no, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was saying like he could have messed with them highly, ruined their lives before he killed them, like broken trust between the characters.
Yeah, and like he could have killed them. He could have killed Sidney Prescott, but like with that technology, he could have just ruined her life with like one phone call.
Exactly. You're right.
So I don't know. It's something I think about a lot. I do enjoy this movie. It's a really good watch if you're just in the mood for something like mindless and goofy, I think especially. But I just feel like I've always felt like Scream was a little more than that. But that's just my take on the franchise. This is your first Scream movie you ever saw though.
Scream 3, yeah. Yep.
So does this one like hold a special place in your heart a little bit because of that reason, or?
Surprisingly, no. No,
interesting. Okay.
I guess it should, but it doesn't. Like, I guess in the fact that it introduced me to like the Scream franchise, but as a movie alone, no.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. Hell yeah, man.
Yeah.
Because that's how I feel about like Scream 4 personally. Like Scream 4, flaws and all. I just love this film because it was my introduction to the franchise. What are your thoughts on this one though?
I love Scream 4, right? Yeah, I absolutely loved Scream 4. Like that was the one I anticipated because it wasn't out yet. I got to go to the theater to see it, and I'm like, yes, I'm so happy to see this. It is coming out 11 years after Scream 3. I'm like, we needed this. I was so excited for it.
Oh yeah, and it's maybe my favorite sequel. Like I'm on the fence, but like 4 and 6 kind of fight for that title often. But this one is just so special to me for a couple of reasons. Like it's got some great kills, some great reveals, and I also think the legacy characters all really shine in this movie. And I feel like it's kind of the last one in the franchise where all 3 of them really do that. Like 5 is good, but they just feel like cameos. But what are your thoughts on the continuations of the characters in this one, past what was kind of the original ending with Scream 3?
I mean, I wish they would have. They didn't really mention Mark in Scream 4.
Yeah.
Which is fine. That's not a huge deal. Once again, Gale and Dewey, they're living together, but you can kind of see like there's some like animosity between them. I did like the fact that Gale was having writer's block because she couldn't figure out what to write. In every other movie, she's like, oh, story, story, story. I have to write about this. So I kind of like seeing that different side of her. She still had the same personality, but she wasn't like, oh my gosh, I have to write about this. But she was looking for something. She always wanted to help in the investigation to have something to write about, I feel. And her character's always been like that, except for part 5. But going to Sydney now, I mean, I think it was good that she got the chance to tell her story in a book and get somewhat of like, some recognition, but she was never at the level of Gale Weather. She's not like, oh, I'm writing this to get a story. Like she just wanted to, I think, tell her story to help others and not make profit. So what they did with Sydney, I also liked.
Yeah, it's a good duality between like Gale and Sydney. Gale is just like, oh, I'm going to put out. I think she cares a little bit about the stories she's telling, but she's definitely like, I want to make some money from this. Sydney Prescott is much more lawful good in the sense that she just wants to tell her story and hopefully connect with other victims of trauma. So like, I really love that we get to explore that here in Scream 4. I've heard a lot of people say it's unnecessary, but I don't know. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that because I think there's a lot of fun you can have exploring some of these other like plot lines and meeting other characters in the family of Sidney Prescott's too. I don't know. I really like what they did with Sydney here, especially. Like I feel like her plot line, sure, you can say it's unnecessary. I think it's interesting. It's a cool exploration of the character in a sense we haven't gotten before.
Exactly, for sure.
Now, Dewey, on the other hand, is juggling a lot in this movie, which I think is fun. We have the introduction of character Deputy Judy, who obviously Gale is not too big a fan of, does not like those damn lemon squares.
Exactly.
This is personally my favorite new character. Well, Jill's really good too, but personally my favorite side character who isn't the killer is Judy. How do you feel about that though? What are your thoughts on some of these new characters?
I liked her a lot. She created some problems. To me, she was good comic relief. I thought she was a good character overall, and then with her being deputy, Dewey made it to sheriff and everything. So I guess it would be like she's kind of like his annoying sidekick, like he was, like in the original. So I think she fit in well. And I think, of course, Gail would be jealous. And I thought there was just an interesting dynamic between them. So she's a good character. I like her. I liked her in Scream 5, too.
Yeah, that's interesting too that they bring her back for 5. Like,
Yeah.
is it kind of just to kill her? I don't know, but
Now that you say that, I think so. I think they needed some throwaway characters so they didn't have to target every single legacy character. But technically, she kind of was a legacy character, so they took out 2 and 5. So
it is I appreciate the kill, but man, it is a bit of a shame because I love Marley Shelton. Like, she's also, I don't know if you've ever seen Planet Terror before, but like, I just love that movie. It's that zombie grindhouse movie from like 2007.
I've seen Valentine. She's in Valentine.
Yes, she is. Yeah, and she's great. Like, everything she's in, she's great. And I just thought she was a great addition to the Scream franchise, big time.
Yeah, great actress. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely, man. So we also have some other new characters, though, including Jill and Charlie, who end up being our killers in the third act. How do you feel about this reveal?
To me, honestly, besides the first one, I thought this was the best reveal out of the entire franchise. I did not expect Jill at all. Like Charlie, whatever, but Jill, Sydney's cousin, I was in shock. And the way she tried to make herself look so innocent, helpless victim, just slamming herself into walls, tables, was awesome. I loved that whole sequence.
Yeah, she really, like, not only is the reveal shocking, but yeah, like, she is just brutalizing herself to make this scene like work, and it's really upsetting. It's very like thematic with what they do in this sequence, and it's hard to watch, which, like, me personally, I love. I think it's horrifying. Emma, oh my God, what is her name? Wow, totally
Emma
blanking.
Roberts.
Emma Roberts, thank you so much. That's literally her last name in the movie too. I can't believe I forgot that.
Yeah, that's funny. That's such a yeah, I love that.
But she gives an amazing performance here. She's so great, and Charlie's good too. Charlie,
he's like, I don't know. He says kill her a little bit more to me than she did, but hey, like he's like each one has like the messy killer, and then you have the brains behind it. Like he has messy killer written all over him. I don't know.
100%. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I will say Charlie's reveal though is pretty upsetting to me. Like with like stabbing Kirby and all that. It's not only like a betrayal, but it's also like, oh my God, are we about to lose this really cool character? What the hell,
Yep. And it's like, I don't know. They seem to have like a good connection right before all that went down. So yeah, they kind of ruined a special moment, but it's a Scream movie, so that's okay.
That's the point, man. It's a slasher at the end of the day. It's got to be a little dark and upsetting. How do you feel about the character of Kirby Reed now that not only like her performance in Scream 4, but now that she's back in 6?
I liked her character. You need that character to make all the meta references. You need that character in a Scream film to reference other horror films. You need that character that knows every detail about, every movie. Like when they were asking her about the remake, she listed off so many remakes, like more than I could have thought of, in that amount of time. And I think she did great with it. She played the character so well in Scream 4.
That's a really iconic moment too. Like I love when she's just like helplessly listing as many remakes as she possibly can. I've seen some people online say she's literally just like reading a list, and I'm like, yeah, but it's the subtext that makes that like monologue so great. It's like the idea that if you don't list as many, if you don't get the right answer here, you're fucked. That's what's so scary about this. And I don't know, I hadn't felt that kind of tension through a phone call in a while, like in the Scream franchise. So to see that here in 4 come back so prominent was a big step up from the previous film.
Yep. And the way she named them all so fast, she's like, I got it. I knew I was right. And then she felt so confident. She went out that door. And then what happens. Yeah,
it's sad, man. It's sad and unfortunate. But I mean, she did live, which is cool.
Yeah, she did.
we know that now, which is nice. Yep. Anything else we got to talk about the opening scene with Scream 4. This is just this is real divisive. Most people I think would say this is the worst opening scene. I'm on the fence about that personally, but what do you think about like the double fake out, then finally the opening
You
kill?
know, it was different. Um, I don't know. I think the reason they did that is to puts like some big cameos in there, like Kristen Bell and Anna Paquin and all of that. But I didn't care for it. I wish they wouldn't have did the fake out ending. It's different. I get why people might like it. Me personally, I was not a fan. I feel like it was. I don't know. I feel like it was a waste of the movie. Really. I don't know.
Well, I also feel like, this movie was trying to make a statement to be like, hey, we're going to be like really scary now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're not doing Scream 3 again. We're going to do something darker and a little more like taking itself seriously.
Yeah.
That was not the way to set that tone, I think.
No, and I agree. It felt silly to me. I agree with that.
It would have been that would have been a really good way to start Scream 3 in my opinion, but yeah, starting Scream 4, I don't know. It's not out of place for a Scream movie at all, and especially like the commentary that comes from it is like, oh, that's actually really cool. We're commenting on like, torture porn, Saw kind of, stuff, and some of the thousands that like Scream essentially missed out on. I get it. I get what they're trying to do. It just feels it just feels a little too goofy for the type of Scream movie they're trying to make here.
Right, I agree. And I will say, I do think Scream 4 is where it really started to get brutal kill-wise, like the whole scene with Olivia in the bedroom. I mean, that was nuts. Intestines on the bed. There was not one part of that bedroom that was not covered in blood. They did good with that.
Oh, dude, without a doubt, man. I really do. Maybe, I don't know if this is fair or unfair, whatever, but I rope like Screams 1, 2, and 3 into a subsection of this franchise, and 4, 5, and 6 together. Like, I feel like they both have similar goals in mind, but they all approach it very differently. Like 4, 5, and 6 is definitely the point where we're trying to up the kills. We're trying to make Ghostface scary, because a big criticism of Screams 1 through 3 is that Ghostface is, he's slipping and sliding around in beer in the first movie. He's really goofy in 3. They wanted to make Ghostface a really scary icon because the concept of him is fucking terrifying.
Absolutely.
I think they do that effectively in 4, 5, and 6 much more than the original trilogy. But I don't know. What are your thoughts about that?
No, I agree with that a lot. And we see in Scream 6, like out of any Scream film, I feel like we have the least amount of comedy in Scream 6 because we just see a much more serious Ghostface. There's not too much comedic relief in that film, in my opinion. And I think they took it somewhere where, the franchise hasn't gone before.
Yeah, and I think Dark Scream works really well. Like, it makes you care. Like, a big thing about Scream, at least in my opinion, that I think all 6 of the movies do really well, some better than others, obviously, is I always care about the characters, where I can't say that about every Friday the 13th movie.
Exactly,
you know what I mean?
Exactly.
So I feel like a darker and more evil villain lends itself to more emotional deaths. Like, oh my God, I hope these characters make it out. I don't know if they're going to. Where, slip and sliding around in beer, Ghostface, I'm not as afraid of, and I'm not as scared for our characters that, are so beloved.
Exactly. And I agree with that 100%.
Yeah, so I don't know. I really appreciate what these later Scream films have done for the franchise. Not to say that there's anything wrong with 1, 2, and 3. I mean, they're fucking amazing. I love them, I think they have just different goals in mind, and that's okay.
Exactly.
Your franchise has to evolve and all that. But 4 is like maybe my favorite sequel. I love this one. Any other closing thoughts on it before we move on to the radio silence era?
No, not really. I just know that I do love that third act of 4. I love it. I guess I'll leave it at that.
Really well done, man. It's really well done. One of the most brutal Scream films, without a doubt, dude. But then so many years later, well, exactly 11 years, actually, we have Scream 2022 come out from brand new directors, the Radio Silence guys. How do you feel about this? Like, this is a brand new take. A lot of people were worried about this one. I feel like it landed on its feet. It stands as its own. I'm a big fan of it. But how do you feel about Scream 2022?
I did not hate it. It was a good movie. It did really well paying dedication to Wes Craven. I've heard from so many other people that they kind of had to do that, being the first ones to take over this franchise that's not Wes Craven. So they kind of had to use it as a love letter and be careful with what they were doing. And I think they aced that. I think they did a great job. I mean, at the end of the movie, we're back at the same house, and there's so many similarities to the original, but with yet so many differences and new characters and things like that. So I think they balanced it really well.
I agree, man. I think they had, they had to do that. Scream hadn't been around for a long time. We've had the TV series, but I don't know if that even really, I don't know if that counts. I think when Wes Craven passed, unfortunately, in 2015, a couple years after the fourth film, a lot of people thought, man, that's it for Scream, So to get a new movie, like specifically, TV series, like I said, is whatever, but a new movie was a big deal. And the Radio Silence guys had a lot to do with this movie. It was not an easy task. I was not expecting a perfect movie from, brand new people, brand new reimagining of the film or reimagining of the franchise. I think they did a pretty good job. I mean, it's nowhere near the best in the franchise, in my opinion, but I do really enjoy a lot of what's going on here. Some of it is missteps, Force Ghost Billy, the opening scene not really being a kill. I have my criticisms of it, but it's a fun movie. I don't know. I still really enjoy it. But speaking of that opening scene, we have Jenna Ortega, and she doesn't die, but it's still a pretty well written scene. What's your take on the opening?
I do feel like with the whole thing of her not dying, it's them doing something different, I guess. First Scream movie that did not do an opening kill, but it was very suspenseful. That phone call felt so personal, just kind of like we saw in the original with Drew Barrymore. Like, at that point, you're not scared of who you're talking to. And I feel like that kind of paid homage to the first one really well. Single girl alone in the house. I feel like they did that really well. And I was shocked when you find out she didn't die, because it looked like she died with all the stabbings and the knife through the hand, broke her leg. It was crazy.
Yeah, I think the entire sequence is phenomenal up until like right at the end. And like this is just me being nitpicky, at the end of the day, but like we get the final shot is like Tara getting stabbed basically right in the chest, I mean, and it cuts away, to the title card, and then she's alive? Like we just watched Ghostface execute her. Like what the hell happened?
Right, because I was like, I figured like he would have just stabbed her one more time to kill her before the cops walked in the door, because all you saw was their lights. So right.
I almost wish she like had ran outside or something, turned around, and Ghostface is gone. It may be a little disappointing, but to me, it's like it would have just made the story make a little more sense. I think they were trying to give us like an early surprise, which I appreciate, but it just didn't land, in my opinion.
Right.
Now, we have the introduction of many new characters, many who end up becoming the focal point, especially in 6, with Sam Carpenter, Tara, Mindy, and Chad. How do you feel about the core 4 characters? In 5 specifically?
I don't care for Mindy that much. To me, she's a little over the top, kind of annoying, in my opinion.
I feel that.
And it's weird because, we had Randy, we had Kirby, but I don't know. They played the part better than Mindy, in my opinion. Mindy was just too over the top, kind of insulting. I don't know. I don't care for her character.
I did this video a little while back talking about like the Randy characters in Scream and stuff. And I think I look at Randy, I look at Kirby, and I feel like they're both executed really well because they understand what a Randy character needs to be and the style of humor that comes from them. Mindy breaks that in a way that I just feel like isn't necessarily the best route for them to take with said character. Like it's the whole joke with her is that she thinks she's right. She's like, oh, you guys are idiots. Like I know exactly what I'm doing. She's very insulting to her friends, but then ends up being wrong. Like that, I don't know, maybe that's funny to some people, but to me, that comes off as this person's just an asshole and doesn't really care what anyone else thinks about her.
Right. That's the vibes I get from her 100%. Even more so in Scream 6. Like I liked her better in Scream 5. I'll say that.
Yeah, I wish they had the humor down with her character because sometimes they're trying to make her Randy, and I just feel like she's a different character than Randy, and that's okay, but there's a certain style that this character has to fit that I just feel like Mindy doesn't necessarily hit. She doesn't hit the certain beats that are necessary for a Randy character. We never see her ever being like paranoid about being in a horror movie. Like this should be her worst this should be her worst nightmare, and she's always just like, yeah, it's fine, it's whatever. There's no fun there,
No, she didn't act scared one time.
Yeah, and like I miss the days where we had our Randy like screaming in the video store because he's like, maybe I'm next. I want to see Mindy get a little more paranoid in 7. I'm really hoping to see that because I just felt underwhelmed with her performances in 5 and 6. Nothing against Jasmine Savoy Brown; she's a phenomenal actress. I just feel like the way they've written her character doesn't necessarily work in terms of trying to fit the Randy mold.
Yeah, exactly. I'm on the same page with that.
But I do really love Sam Carpenter, who is technically our new lead. How do you feel about her kind of taking the limelight here?
I liked her a lot. I know a lot of people had insulted her character and her acting, and I just don't see it. I think she did a really phenomenal job, honestly. I thought it was a good way to bring in a new character that wasn't Sidney Prescott. I thought they managed that really well.
I totally agree. I was a little nervous, like we were just talking about earlier on in the podcast how Sidney Prescott is oftentimes considered the best final girl of all time. How do you replace that person, with those
Right.
credentials? I think Sam Carpenter does a pretty damn good job, and the biggest reason why is they decided to make her a wildly different character because
Mhm.
I think if they would have just tried to emulate Sidney Prescott, it just wouldn't have worked. Like
Right.
Sidney casting Nev Campbell in that role and like where they took the character in the other movies, it's just way too iconic to just try to do the same exact thing.
Right. And I think like, you know, Scream 5 needed like a new fresh set of characters because there's kids going to see these movies that don't know what Scream 1, 2 and 3 are, maybe even 4. It's like, you have to make it, you know, available to a younger audience and then an audience that's nostalgic because of the first one. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like you have to
Yes.
balance that out these days. You really do. I don't feel like you could just focus on Sidney Prescott in the core not the core 3, but the original 3. So I don't know. I feel like you have to do it. And I feel like they did that balance really well.
I totally agree, man. I think they did it really well in 5, 6, we'll get to it, but I
Yeah.
think 5 balances the characters pretty well. I'm really happy with the Gale and Dewey like performance and like their roles in
Yeah.
5. I wish Sydney was involved a little more, but it makes sense why she's not. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like I get why she's kind of just shows up in the third act. Like Dewey dying is like, yeah, okay, she's got to show up. She would
Yeah.
never show up before that. Totally works with the character. But
Right.
there is a part of me that wishes she had a little more involvement. It kind of reminded me of Scream 3 in that way.
Absolutely. I agree with that too. They felt very similar in that way. I agree.
Now, the kills are also like really ramped up in this one. Like I'm going to be real, like besides the Vince kill, I love nearly every like murder or attack sequence in Scream 5 in particular. What are your thoughts on some of the kills here?
They were great. They were brutal. My favorite death out of that entire movie was Judy because she broad daylight. I didn't expect her to get killed till she walked in that house, not stabbed and thrown off that porch, and then just stabbed to death right under the American flag on her suburban street. That was crazy to me. That was something we haven't seen in a Scream film before, and that killer's ballsy doing it in broad daylight like that.
Dude, I audibly gasped when I saw that scene for the first time in theaters. Like, oh my God. Like, it scared the fuck out of me, too,
Yeah.
dude, because it really does come out of nowhere. And just like you said, you're just not expecting a broad daylight Ghostface kill. Like, has that even like, besides, like Nancy Loomis, or not Nancy Loomis, besides Debbie Salt, like, has that happened? Like, I don't even know. It was just so shocking to me. I just
Yeah.
was not expecting that at all. And it's one of the darkest moments maybe in the entire franchise.
Well, yeah, to me, it was more shocking than the Randy kill because it's like, he's not like he was pulled into a van before he was, stabbed to death. Those
Right.
guys with the boombox didn't see him. So it's like, this is broad daylight. You don't know who's home. You know what I'm saying? You don't know what cars are going to drive by.
Right. I think it's just so much scarier, like for that reason. Ugh, I don't know. That one it shocked the fuck out of me. It's a great little jump, and her kill is just really upsetting. Not only is this a legacy character, but we get to meet her, son, and we already care about this person, and then they both get like viciously murdered in
Yeah.
the span of like 5 minutes. It's like, oh my God, geez. The West kill might be my favorite, just
Yeah,
because
that
of how
was-
slow it is. Ooh.
Yeah. Slow, brutal, looked very real. I think they did a great job with that kill.
Oh,
Great
absolutely,
job.
man.
And they built up so much suspense leading up to it. Him searching the house, trying to find out where his mom is. Hey, mom, are you home? The only thing I didn't like is, we didn't get any chase scenes in that movie, but hey, it is what it is.
Yeah, that is a little, it's not even a little weird. It's just weird. You know what I mean? Like we get a lot of like good kills, but I just feel like they're rarely built up to. The Vince scene in particular, I feel like should have been a chase to a death. And we just kind of get a random kill that goes so fast.
Oh yeah, just like one stab in the neck and then he dies. Like you don't even see what happens after that. He's just like, you know what I'm saying? Like that death was very, I mean, yes, it's brutal getting stabbed in the neck like that, but it was very underwhelming because it was such a short scene. I feel like originally they filmed more to that and just cut it for whatever reason. Yeah, I don't know. And I like this goes a little off topic, but I really loved the characters of Judy and Wes in that movie. Like they had a you could tell they had a great relationship. So it was hard to see both of them go. And in
Yeah.
the conversation that Judy had with Ghostface, I thought was amazing. He's like, "What's your favorite scary movie?" She's like, "I love animated films and musicals." Like, I don't know, it was just funny. Like she's such a wholehearted, like, you know what I mean? Like a wholehearted character. I love it.
Yeah, well, not
Yeah.
only that, but you also, when you finally get to the death, it's just so much more upsetting for that reason. Like, you really do
Yeah.
care about Judy, and it's like, fuck, man. Oh my
Yeah.
God, they just annihilated her. With
Yeah.
the character of Vince, I don't care about him at all. He was a
Right.
dick to our main
Yep.
characters. He's apparently super creepy about Liv. And I don't know. To me, I needed a reason to care about him, and they just never offered that. And
Nope.
it's, Kyle Gallner, who plays him, great actor, man, too. I wish there was more with this character. I wish there was just a bit of a chase scene. Think about the setting, too. We're at like this back alley bar somewhere in like the offshoots of Woodsboro, probably.
Yeah.
We could have done like a whole fucking chase scene through a bunch of alleyways or something, and then it could have led to a poke in the neck. I would have been fine with that if we had, built it up a little more.
Right. No, like, and he's pretty big in horror. Like he plays like the final guy on a lot of movies, and it's like, I don't know. I feel like they could have utilized him more.
Think about like we were just talking about CC Cooper's death. Like think about
Yeah.
that chase scene. That's what we
Yeah.
should have gotten there. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Exactly. Like
Yeah.
they could have did something better with that. I agree with you 100%.
Yeah, like I said, still love Kyle Gallner, but I just wish there was more to that scene. But
Right. Agreed.
this is like maybe one of my favorite elements of the entire film. But we also have two killers here that I like personally. I was pretty blown away by one of them. How do you feel how do you feel about our two killers in Scream 2022?
Well, when it comes to Richie, I feel like they really mocked the original. So I guess I wish they wouldn't have went down that route because it just felt way too similar to the original. But surprising wise, like, yes, I'm like, I did not think they were actually going to do that. So yes, it was shocking. Amber, to me, I didn't really care too much about her. I don't think she had a big enough role in the movie, in my opinion. They just kind of set her up to be like, oh, I care so much about Tara and I don't like her sister because of what happened. It's like, I feel like we only got a couple scenes with her. So I feel like to have her as the killer almost felt like a waste, in my opinion, but I don't know.
I felt like we should have had like at least one more scene with Amber and maybe one less scene with Richie. Like, does that make sense?
Yeah, that does make sense. And I wish, like, by saying that, I wish, like, we would have seen maybe a scene with Tara and Amber alone to kind of see, like, their dynamic.
Yes, and we get this sequence in Stu's basement that they created for this movie for some reason. That's another thing that's weird about this. But something I'm not crazy about with that scene is it really doesn't tell us anything about these two characters when you think about it. Like if that was Tara and Amber, who previously had been talking in the opening scene, like via text message, that would have been a really interesting evolution of that conversation to that point. Like how are these characters feeling about the situation right now? We're at a party. Could we have gotten Tara at the party earlier for some reason? I don't know. I just feel like that conversation would have been way more effective and way more telling to what's going on with these characters if that had been between those two instead of Mindy.
100%. I agree with that.
Because I don't know. I just wasn't like, sure, maybe I was suspecting one of them is the killer due to their conversation, but it's just a little too on the nose. They do the same thing with Liv, a couple, like, oddly enough, with Mindy as well, later on, and like just 10 minutes later in the film or whatever, where it's Liv and she comes and like screams at Mindy about Chad and stuff. It was just a little too like, you're really trying to make her a red herring right now. Like you should have set that up from the beginning. Yeah,
she was saying some pretty interesting things, and then she did that like neck cut move. And it's like, okay.
Yeah, like, little too on, like, just a little too, like, on the nose isn't even the right word, like, just a little too, like, in your face about what they're trying to do. They're translating it a little too much. And I wish it had felt just a little more realistic in some of those sequences.
And that's what I agree.
But I gotta admit, I don't know. However you feel about this, all good. But the Amber reveal is one of the most upsetting, shocking moments of the whole franchise for me. Like, that fucked me up. Like, I might have thought that maybe she was the killer, but the way they did it, for me, blew me away just like Liv's head.
Yep, exactly. Because she's like, because she's like, as soon as she says, I'm not the killer, she's like, I know. Shoots her in the head. And it happened out of nowhere. It's like kind of just like almost like a jump scare in a way. It's like literally no like anticipation like about it just happened so quick, and then everyone's like, oh shit, okay, she's the killer. You know what I mean?
Right, right. I remember we had somebody in our like the theater. Like we were maybe like middle of the house, but all the way in the back, someone was like, "Oh!" like that, and
Yeah.
it was just so funny.
Yep.
I don't know. That reveal to me was great. The Richie reveal, I'm a little underwhelmed by, but I don't know. How do you feel about that?
I mean, like I said, it played out like Billy's reveal, in my opinion, in the first one. It's like, but I didn't see it coming when Sam helped him up. I didn't think he was gonna stab her. So to be honest with you, I was in shock. I was in shock.
The stab is upsetting, man. I will say, because
Yeah.
I really cared about Sam at that point. I'm like, no, oh my god, but I
Yep.
kind of. You can kind of figure out it's Richie. That's my only big issue with Scream
Yeah.
2022. I just wish that I don't know. I just wish they hadn't translated Richie as the killer as much as
Right.
they did.
Yeah. I don't know. I honestly like. I don't know. I thought they were like a good couple and they cared about each other and they set that up really well. You know.
They do. No, they do. It's. I'm not even saying that they don't do anything. Like I'm
Yeah.
not trying to say that they don't do anything to make you think otherwise. I just would like the big thing for me is like the Dewey sequence where he's like,
Yeah.
"Oh, how long have you been dating this guy?" He's immediately suspicious of Richie, and I'm like, probably should listen to the legacy characters. You know what I mean in terms of trying to
Right.
figure out who the killer is. That's where my mind was going the first time I watched it. Speaking of which, though, Dewey Riley. This
Yeah.
is a very maybe the most controversial thing about Scream 5. How do you feel about his death?
It was sad, but I think they made the right move because we had 4 movies with these legacy characters to show some type of like realism. We had to get rid of one of them, and unfortunately, I think Dewey made the most sense.
And it's just, oh my god, it's heartbreaking, man. I remember the first time I saw it, like jaw on the ground. Like I was both shocked and upset, like at the same time. And I don't think I've ever felt that like both of those emotions so
Yep.
hardcore at the same time during
Yep.
any other point in this entire film franchise.
And you know what? At the end of the day, it's Gail's fault. She was calling him.
Yeah. I don't do you think she knows that,
No. I think like because if she didn't call him, like he would have been on guard. Like he only died because he got caught off guard. He let his guard down because he saw Gail calling. But that would be crazy if like I don't know if Gail was in on that'd be weird. But hey,
I think what I meant by that is more like, do you think that like Gail knows that she was somewhat well, not even somewhat, but
I
kind of
see what you're
responsible for
saying.
his for his death?
I don't think so because I don't think like unless they like time stamped exactly when he died. But I mean, it's possible that she feels like guilt over, oh no, if I didn't call him and he picked up his phone, he wouldn't be dead. I see what you're saying.
I almost wish they would have. I think about that a lot, because it's my job to talk about all this shit, and I think about like what if Amber would have said something at the end of the film like you were responsible for it, you know what I mean? Like it's like he was like, oh, he was gonna shoot me in the head, I was gonna be dead in 2 seconds, you saved my life, and then it would have been a full on like she calls him. She says like, "Oh, Dewey was a pussy" or whatever. So like that's fucked already. But I just think like, oh man, if she would have said something about that would have stung, dude.
Oh, exactly. Like that. Like when I didn't expect her to even give that line at the end of the movie. Saying that he died like a pussy. I'm like, oh damn. Like that's like what Art the Clown did, adding bleach and salt to the wound. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, with words. Like we are throwing bleach and salt with words right there. Oh my god.
And what a lot of people say is that Stu is the one who killed Dewey, and I do hope that's not the case. But hey, I guess whatever the future holds.
Are you a big Stu guy or?
I used to be, but honestly, listening to your opinions on it, I kind of moved towards your thoughts on it.
Well, thanks, man. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Quick sidebar. I love Stu. He's an amazing character. I don't want that to be the reveal. I love one of my favorite aspects to Scream is like, man, we get a new killer every single time. That's fucking sick, man. I want hopefully we get somebody new in 7. But
I agree.
Speaking of a bunch of new fucking killers, Scream 6.
Yeah.
Oh my god. What are your thoughts on this one?
Overall, I like the movie. I do like what they did, like an instant killer reveal. So like right off the bat, I'm like, okay, where are they going with this? But within the next couple minutes, you find out, okay, he gets a call from another Ghostface. he's gonna die. So I knew it wasn't gonna be us knowing who the killer was the whole movie, you know. So I thought what they did with that, it was pretty good. It was pretty good. I overall I liked that movie a lot. I don't. I mean, yes, that movie was brutal. The kills were brutal, but I feel like it could have been more brutal,
especially in the third act. At least for me.
Exactly.
Like I look at I love the opening. The whole first half I almost have no notes. Like I'm like I love this. This is what I want from Scream. It's a little more punk rock than any of the other films too, which like me personally I love. Yep. I think that they kind of lose that in the back half, and that's my issue with it. It's one of the only like Scream 3, say what you will about it, it has a consistent tone from start to finish. Yep. 6 starts off with a really good tone and then kind of loses that in the second half, and I just it sucks. I wish that if they would have kept that the whole time, it could have been like the best Scream sequel without a doubt.
Yeah. And I think the whole reveal, like I was saying earlier with Detective Bailey, I feel like it got a little silly, a little comical, a little animated, if you will. It got weird. And I think that Mindy should have died in that subway 100%.
Oh, yeah, that would have been way more. It would have been a little emotional. It would have been just really it would have been really brutal too. Like dying in public, surrounded by people. Like what? I don't know. They hyped up that scene so much, and then we didn't get a death there. Like that's just I don't know. That was just a little disappointing.
No, and not and then what? Then she's at the end of the movie just dancing around the ambulance. Oh, hey, I'm good. It's like, yeah, okay.
That was a couple hours later, like what?
In that time, yeah, probably a couple hours after, exactly.
Like they stitched her up that fast? Okay, yep. Shit, and damn.
Let her leave, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I think after, Gail lives, which is fine, whatever. If you don't want to kill Gail, that's fine. But you need that emotional death, and a lot of Scream 6, especially in the back half, wants to have its cake and eat it too. It wants to give you that emotional dark death, but also give you this happy Demi Lovato song driven ending. And I don't know, man. That should have been dark. It should have been upsetting the whole way through, and built upon that. Been darker, every scene darker than the last. That's kind of the vibe they were setting up for this movie. It's like we're gonna do some dark, tragic shit, but we're gonna have a blast doing it, and they lose that in the second half, which really is a shame.
Yep, I agree.
I love a lot of the sequences in this movie, though, which never come off as like too gimmicky. That's something I was really worried about going into this with a New York setting. But how do you feel about the setting and some of the chases we get because of it?
I think I think they did a really good job. I really liked the convenience store scene. Like that was different. We've never seen Ghostface go in somewhere in public, kill some of the patrons in the store, and then somewhat do a chase scene with Sam and Tara. I think that was something we've never seen before. It was different. He was just stalking them around those aisles, and he seemed confident in what he was doing. There was no comedic moments. There was no clumsiness on his part, and they did really well with that. Same thing with, like Gail's death scene. I don't think there was any clumsiness, not death scene, but her chase scene. That there was no clumsiness there. I think they did really well with kind of taking some of that out of this film.
Yeah, I totally agree. I love the chase scenes altogether. I just thought were so well done, so suspenseful, even if most times they didn't really lead to a death, which sucks. But for me, yeah, the Gale chase is so well done. The ladder sequence is tense, man. I mean, I don't know. Oh, that was just, it's so tense, and then it leads to one of the most upsetting kills maybe in the whole franchise for what they do, how they set it up, and it's, oh my God, Annika hitting that dumpster like face first and then the ground is, oh man.
Yeah, and I was actually, before you brought that up, I was going to bring that up too. And, there's something in that scene I'm surprised they did not do, because we always know there's always more than one killer. So I thought once they got to the other side, the other killer would have been in Danny's apartment and just killed some of them right there.
Oh my God, dude. Oh shit. You want to talk about like a sequence where you think it's over, but it's not. The tension just keeps building. Fuck, man. Can you imagine if someone else died in that scene? Oh, dude.
Yep. And I'm surprised they didn't do that, because as soon as I saw that trailer, I'm like, someone's going to be at the other end of that ladder. And it didn't happen.
And you know what else they could? Oh my god! Oh my, that's a great. First of all, great idea. Could you imagine if we would have gotten a shot too while Annika is trying to cross the ladder, and it's like Ghostface is doing this, but just a real quick shot of the people on the other side, and just another Ghostface pops up behind him. So we're already setting up the next thing. Annika dies. Oh my god! And then stabbed to the face somebody else, like maybe Danny or something.
Exactly. Yep. That's what I don't know. I thought that's where they were gonna go with it, but they didn't. So I don't know.
Yeah, man, that would have been a really like, you think it's over. Oh no, we're still going. That would have been good. But I still do love this sequence. I gotta say, like the chase, the build, the guy dead in the bathtub and everything. Blood is fucking everywhere. It's pretty good. How do you feel about the Liana Liberato fake out death though? Because like she technically dies and then comes back at the ending.
I don't know. I guess it was a way to kind of like make us not suspect her anymore. But it's like, okay, we saw that in Scream 3, so it's like, it is what it is. It made us like think who's under that mask, and we're like, it can't be her. So when she pulled that mask off and it was her, it was shocking. So I guess it's give and take with the whole situation. I don't really care for the fake out deaths, but I guess it can also lead to a good reveal. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's maybe one of the better ones in that movie, but still, like all three reveals are pretty kind of that for me personally. I think it's the weakest part of the whole movie. Like Dermot Mulroney comes out, it's like, of course it's him, dude.
yeah. Like I didn't like as soon as like Kirby got accused of being the killer, I didn't buy that at all. I didn't.
Yeah, like no way they're gonna bring her back and make her the killer, dude. Come on. She gave that whole speech about like I became an FBI agent to be scarier than the monsters. The monsters are afraid of me. Come on, dude. No way. I don't buy
it. They weren't gonna do that to her. Hands down. And and the thing I will say about this reveal, I like when we see the killer in the Ghostface mask and then we see them pull it off. Like a lot of the times they just reveal it without them wearing the Ghostface costume. So I do like when you see them and you're like, who's under that mask? We're about to find out,
Yeah, and like how they do it here is they have, like they're pointing the guns at each other or whatever, and then he shoots and gives like a little smile, and it's like, oh, it's him. I don't know. I think they were trying to pull another Amber on us, but it just didn't, it just didn't work. It worked the first time, but you're not gonna, you can't, fool me once, can't fool me twice. That's how I see it.
Agreed.
Yeah, so I wish they would have just came up with another way to do it. And like how you said, what if Ghostface came out and stabbed Kirby in the chest or something, and then like she fell. I don't know why I'm talking about stabbing people in the chest so much tonight. I just realized I've said that like 7 times. But
hey, it's Scream.
Yeah, right? Yeah. Come on. But yeah, I don't know. I just wish they would have done it that way. I miss a good just taking off the mask and it's like, oh no, this person. I miss that like Jill. Think Jill in Scream 4.
Exactly, in the hallway by the stairs. Yup, that's so shocking.
I'm hoping to see that again in 7, but fingers crossed. Me too. With that being said, is there any expectations or like just a couple of things, a wish list, for instance, that you want for Scream 7?
I do hope that they do bring Sydney back. And that's another thing. I'm glad they did not kill off Gale Weathers in 6, only because we have no legacy characters left if Nev Campbell doesn't come back. So I'm glad they kept Gale alive. I feel like we still need her a little bit longer, but if we get Nev Campbell to come back and they want to go away with Gale, at that point, it's fine to me.
I'm really excited to see what they do with Gale if she does come back. Mm-hmm. Like she, kind of fucks up in Scream 6 as we learned, and then almost dies because of it. Obviously she hasn't been in this place. She's been in this place before is my point, but like now it really, really almost led to her fucking dying. Like that was the closest this character has ever come to death. Does that change her for Scream 7 for the better? I don't know. What do you think about that? If they bring Gale back?
It will. I think she'll go back to how she was in Scream 5 because her conversation with Ghostface was so brutal all on its own. The things he was saying to her, the guilt he was making her feel about Dewey. Dewey's the only man that's ever loved you. And she had tears running down her face. Like I saw the words he said to her really stuck. So I think she's going to go back to a better path. But if she makes it to 8, she might write another book. Who knows?
Hopefully it's about Dewey this time and not the fun.
Said the killer doesn't need attention. I'm going to write a story about a sheriff here. It's like, okay.
I think that's probably what they're setting up for 7. You know,
Yeah,
like she's gonna
right,
write the book. That's
right.
that's what I think, because like she did it in 6, they're gonna do it in 7 probably.
Yeah.
That's my guess at least. So that would be cool. I would love to see Sydney and like maybe Mark Kincaid back for 7
Yeah,
too.
yeah, for sure. And I
Anything?
do.
Oh, go
Oh
ahead.
yeah,
Sorry.
go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm just bullshitting, dude. What do you got to say?
No, so I was saying, even though I did like the New York setting, I don't want to see the New York setting again.
I feel you.
Yeah, it was great though. They did a good job with it. You know, a lot of people say they didn't represent New York very well. I think they did. They didn't overdo it. I felt big city life to me, and I think they did good with it. But I don't know. I want to see him go somewhere else. I don't know. I don't know what they could do, because it's like the Woodsboro thing's been so overdone. So I feel like they can't go back to Woodsboro. But it's like, okay, where can they go next? And I think, you know, the creatives will figure out something. I think they know what they're doing, and I think Scream 7 is going to be good no matter what they decide to do.
Dude, I'm with you, man. I'm just excited that we're getting another Scream film. I will say one last question, and we're gonna have to wrap this podcast up. But in terms of setting, would you be down for like snow? Because this has been a big fan theory that maybe we're getting a snowy Scream, maybe even Christmas oriented or something. What are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely, 100%. I think that'd be awesome. Like right during Christmas time, absolutely.
It would be scary and different. You know what I mean? We've never really done like a holiday focused Scream. I'm like, that's actually really cool.
And you don't see a lot of that with like you see that a lot with like a lot of newer movies like Black Christmas and things like that. But seeing like something that goes back as like far as Scream, Halloween, you know, bringing them into the Christmas, you know, season, I think that'd be great. I'd love to see that 100%.
Hell yeah, man. There's a lot more you can do with that chase scene wise, Ghostface in the snow. Ooh, you know, it's new, it's different, it's fresh. I love that. And that's what I'm hoping for. That's the biggest thing for Scream 7. I just hope it's fresh. I hope it's something that's unexpected and really fun, just like all these other movies.
Agreed.
Hell yeah, Matt. So anything you want to plug real quick before we close this up?
Yeah, so I'm going to continue to plug for the my YouTube channel, Slashing It with Matt. Still haven't done too many things on there yet, but me and my wife are actually going to get together and we're going to go over some of the Halloween films and we're going to debate them. I'm going to say why I think they're great, and she's going to say why she doesn't think they're so great. And we're kind of going to get into it on film and like see what people think, see if people agree with me, see if they agree with her. So she's never been a huge fan of the Halloween films, even though she's seen them. So I kind of want to go over that on camera. So we're going to be doing that soon. And then my TikTok, Everything with Matt. Pretty soon I'm going to start doing like some scary story lives and get that going here soon in October. So yeah.
Nice, man. Really good stuff, dude.
Yeah.
That's great to hear.
Yeah.
Well, go check out all those things. I'm going to absolutely try to get those links in the description of this video. Sometimes I forget and I'm so sorry, but I promise I will. Check out Slashing It with Matt. Check out Everything with Matt on TikTok. There we go. Good stuff, man.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Oh, sorry. I keep cutting you off, man. I'm so sorry.
That's all right. No.
I'm a fast talker and I can't
That's
help
all right.
it.
You're passionate about horror. There's nothing wrong with that.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate that. Well, Matt, it's been an absolute pleasure talking with you as always. Thank you so much for being here, dude.
Yep. Thank you for having me.
Of course, man. And thank you all for watching. And as always, don't forget to kill it out there, y'all.
All right,
Peace.
Bye, guys.